Good evening everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today in this video I will be discussing another topic of sociolinguistics, and that is codes, which are further divided into elaborated and restricted codes. We will also be doing some previous year questions based on this topic. So let's get started. The codes defined by Little John as a set of organizing principles behind the language employed by members of a social group. Then the codes division, which was into restricted and elaborated codes, was given by Basil Bernstein in the 1960s. As an educator, Bernstein noticed that working class students performed relatively poor in language based subjects. Uh, Although when it comes to aptitude based subjects like mathematics, they performed as equal, or they achieved scores as equal to middle class counterparts. So based on this, he came to an assertion that there is a direct relationship, or there is a correlation between the societal class and the language code. There is a book of Bernstein which is very important, and that is Class Codes and Control, which came in 1971. In the book, he discussed it how societal class affects the way people assign significance and meaning to the things about which they are speaking. Now let's talk about the distinction between elaborated and restricted codes. So questions that have been asked so far are mostly based on the difference between these two. So elaborated code was the code which was used in relatively formal or educated situations. It is complete and hence full of details. So it doesn't need any extra information needed to understand it. So all the information is present in the message itself. Thus they are context free. They also permit speakers to be individually creative in their expression, and provides a wider range of situations at the disposal. They also gives and provides higher linguistic alternatives. And one feature of elaborated code is that they are marked by subordinate clauses, adjectives, the pronoun I, and passives. Talking about the restricted code, so they are in contrast with the elaborated code, and they are used in relatively informal situations. They are short and condensed, hence requires background information. Restricted codes are also context bound and cannot be easily understood without additional information beyond that in the message. They lack stylistic range, and alternatives are also very limited. This speech is highly predictable, and it is fast and fluent as well. Restricted code basically gives a sense of inclusion, a feeling of belonging to a certain group. You can also say that it is a kind of insider's conversation. Restricted codes marks the features such as pronouns, tag questions, use of gestures, and intonation to convey meaning. So as I told you that Bernstein suggests a correlation between social class and the use of either elaborated or restricted code. Apart from this, he also argues that in the working class you are likely to find the use of restricted code. Whereas in the middle class you find the use of both the restricted and elaborated codes. That's all about the codes. Now let's just quickly move to the previous year questions. So the first one is a very direct question, and it says that the terms restricted and elaborated codes were introduced by. So Basil Bernstein is the person who introduced these terms, restricted and elaborated codes. Moving to the next question, it is based on assertion. Assertion 1 says elaborated code is used in relatively formal and educated situations. Assertion 2 says it permits speakers to be individually empowered to handle a wider range of situations. So if you have followed the video well, you will be able to conclude that both the assertions are correct. Hence option C is the correct answer. Both first and second are true. Moving on, we have another question based on assertions. Assertion 1 says elaborated code is said to be used in relatively formal educated situations. Assertion 2 says elaborated code is salient for its meaningfulness on extra linguistic context such as gestures and shared beliefs. So if you will notice, the first one is correct. While elaborated codes are context free, they do not depend on context. The codes which are dependent on context are restricted codes. So assertion 2 is false. Hence option 1 is the correct answer. Moving on to our last question, and in this question you have to tell which one of them is correct in the case of restricted and elaborated code. So the first says that it is based on the premise that different classes within a society are marked by different types of social relations and corresponding to the class divisions of society in the linguistic dichotomy of an elaborated and a restricted code. So it's correct. Now the second is elaborated code was said to be used in relatively formal educated situations, not to be relying for its meaningfulness on extra linguistic content. That is, it is context free. Then it permit speakers to be individually creative, and linguistic alternatives are also present. Hence option B is also correct. Now, talking about the third one, C, elaborated code was said to be characterized linguistically by being highly predictable and relatively high proportion of features like pronouns, tag questions. That is incorrect because these pronouns and tag questions are part of restricted code. Moving on, we have option D as restricted code was thought to be used in relatively informal situations. Stressing the speaker's membership of a group was very reliant on the context for their meaningfulness and lacked stylistic range. This is also true. The fifth is restricted code was said to be characterized linguistically by a relatively high proportion of such features as subordinate clauses, adjectives, the pronoun I. No, this is incorrect because all these things, subordinate clauses, adjectives, the pronoun I, and passives are the features of elaborated code. Hence, A, B, and D are correct. Option 2 is the correct answer. Thank you so much. Do like the video and comment. Thank you.